Okay, welcome to the March 9th North Logan City Council meeting. We will excuse Buzzy tonight and officially welcome Alan back from Disneyland. I think he's hoping everyone would know that that's where he's been. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Emily, after which Joni will say the opening prayer.
Please stand and repeat with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful that we could meet this evening and pray for those who will be presenting and for each of us as we delicately consider the topics that we need to address tonight. Pray for thy guidance in the decisions we make. We're grateful for those who have taken their time tonight to be here with us. And pray, Father, for those who are in Ukraine at this time. Pray for their safety. Pray for the leaders of our different world governments, that hearts can be softened and that good decisions can be made for the benefit of all of us, and especially those that are in this conflicted area. We do love thee and thank thee for all that we've been blessed with, for this country that we live in, and for this area that we live in as well. We pray that we can continue to do the things that will help North Logan stay a place that we all feel safe and welcomed in. We say this humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Rogers, second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I'm trying to remember, did we get a city council meeting minutes? No, so we won't have any of those to approve tonight. Alan, would you give us any follow-up on issues from our previous meetings and or the review of the action items?
Yes. Just jumping down through the action items. Civic Center we'll talk about a little bit later in this meeting. Compensation Committee will have a meeting next week to go over some of the details regarding some of the departments, obviously focusing on revenue and ways in which we can increase compensation. Communication Committee, there are a few items as well that we're working on with the interns. Jumping down through water, we're still looking at two different funding sources, one that we've partially secured and we'll have to go through some more process with the state regarding some of the water funding. We are getting our bids and seeing which well drillers would be available to help with a well that we'll be working on this summer. And then obviously a few other water line projects that we're working on. The major sewer trunk line project is well underway. A major portion of that our Public Works Department and engineer are working on very diligently with Logan is the major section at 18th North and 6th West near the railroad tracks. That's going to be a major undertaking to get that done with that intersection being improved. So that's one of the major projects right now. Streets are obviously going out to get bids. They're working on their budget and they're also working heavily on truck repairs, still doing plowing, those types of things. Stormwater is primarily just doing their inspections, but also updating their inspection software that they're using. Working on that. Engineering, right now it's primarily working on the area here. So we're working on the canal piping through here, the 1200 East overlay. Our source protection ordinance we'll talk about tonight that Lance has been instrumental in putting together. Jumping down through here, parks will go over a few things tonight, and so we'll brush over those. Trails as well, part of that budget. Recreation's in the same boat, so I don't want to steal their fire. Facilities, they did prepare their budget. Their budget's one of the last ones to be prepared because it's dependent on all the other budgets that are put together. But they're working on some things right now here at the library and at the RSL facility. Cemetery, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. It went well, but we've got several things on the docket that we need to plan and work on related to the cemetery. Jumping down through here, community development. This week there'll be a rezone request for a property north of here and north of Aspen Meadows. That'll be tomorrow night, along with several code changes that they're discussing, and some developmental proposals. And so they're very busy. They have a full agenda this week. Economic development, the economic development master plan, we still need to finalize some of those pictures to bring in and work on that, but they are doing focus sites. And Hayden's working very hard on that with Spencer and with our interns. We are, Debbie's been helping with several different things. Obviously, there's the year-end collections and things that she's finalizing. But there's a new utility billing template she's put together, which should be more clear to the residents of the community in communication. Going down through here, our disproportionate business license fee, the study that's related to just police services is about 3/4 of the way completed. They've gone through all the data. The police department provided a large amount of that, or all of the data that went into that study so far. And then the other disproportionate business license fee has been working well to this point. So businesses have lowered significantly the number of calls that they have to fire and EMS. So there's been a positive effect there through those fees and that fee structure. It is Employee Appreciation Month, and thanks to the HR department, Karen's put together several things for this month, several things to recognize employees as well. Scott will go over several budgets tonight. He's been instrumental in helping out with that and with the ordinances you'll see this evening. Library, there's several things going on. They're starting to talk about fundraising. Obviously, with the Civic Center, they're involved with the designs, which we'll talk about later tonight. Police, they are working with us on the nuisance properties. We'll talk about the parking ordinance tonight, which is related to that. And then fire department, they are working on their Station 70 rebuild. And that's probably a lot of the bulk of the excitement, I guess, surrounding that as well. I don't know if there's anything else. I skimmed over those pretty quickly. Any specific questions regarding those?
I don't think so. Sounds like we'll have a chance to address some of those things more specifically later on. All right, we will move on. We are going to postpone the recognition of an exemplary staff member. And I think with that, we will move on to the action items, starting with considering ratifying appointments to city boards and commissions. We just have one of those tonight. That is, we've received a proposal for John Bailey to serve on the library board. I think he will be an asset to the board, and we're lucky that he's willing. So I guess, do we do a motion on that, Ellen? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve John Bailey's appointment to the library board.
I'll second that.
Well, I need a motion.
So
moved.
motion.
Let's see, we'll give it to Emily. Second, we'll give to Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. We'll move on to updates from the Cache Water District. I understand that Brett Randall is here to report on that.
Real quick, I don't want to take any more of your long schedule. My name is Brett Randall. I represent the Northeast District on the Cache Water District. I should probably be better at coming to you on a more regular basis. The district is in its infancy, but such a few things that the district is working on. One that you should be aware of that affects North Logan directly would be the Crockett Avenue diversion and project. It's called a PL 566 project. I don't know what that all stands for, but it's a $25 million grant that they're right now they're in the draft EA. So the environmental impact statement is due at the end of the fall of this year. And then there'll be probably a 60 or 90 day public input period after that draft EA is done, or after the EA is done. And there's two options. And I don't know if you know anything about the canal project that is going to affect this lower canal as it comes through North Logan and then dies in Hyde Park, that they're talking about pressurizing it and putting it in a pipe up to 2,500 north and they want to do all of Hyde Park, but the funding's not available. Hopefully in the next turn, they would be able to then pipe the rest of it to its conclusion. But there's two options. One is they want to change the diversion from Crockett to go up to the mouth of the canyon by First Dam. Or the other option is to let the whole river come through Logan City and then divert it as it leaves Logan City and then pipe it back up through the systems. There's 10 canal companies involved in this. It's very, very detailed, but right now that's where that project is at. I plan on coming back to you in the fall when the EA is done. And then you guys obviously would look at it and have input through the federal government for that project. The other thing you need to be aware about, I don't know if you know this, but HB 242 passed the House and the Senate and will probably be signed by the governor, where they threw a lot of money at conservation for water. And they made it mandatory that every connection, homeowner connection, not agriculture, but homeowner on a secondary system be metered. And so right now for the next 2 years, it's going to be a 70-30 match. So the canal companies and or cities, if the city actually has any interest in the canal, that the city then would pay 30% and the state would pay 70%. That portion 70-30 is only valid for 2 years, and then it goes 60-40, 50-50, and then in 2030 is when they're going to start finding people that aren't hooked up to a meter process. It's very, very, very expensive. Everyone's trying to work out the fine details on what this looks like, how it's going to be administered, who's going to enforce. And right now, large canal companies around the at least the northern part of the state from Utah County north are already standing in line for that money. So this isn't a canal company discussion, but certainly would affect many, many residents in North Logan. With that being said, there's tons of other bills that got passed, but do you have any questions for me for the water district?
So that match would be the city pays it, not the homeowner themselves.
Yes and no.
Okay,
It all depends on the state they're not going to care who pays the match.
okay.
So I don't know if does you guys have interest in the North Logan Hyde Park Canal? Is that, I don't know how that, I know that they're independent, but everyone has their own connections.
Interest is in participating in the
Yeah,
match.
I mean, if you have 3 canals that come through your community, and so yes, at some point everyone's going to have to pay, whether it's through the canal company or through the city, a boatload of money. It's going to be very, very expensive. Some canal companies are just going to say, we're not going to pay it. Go ahead and fine us in 10 years because it's too expensive. So I think they rushed it through. That's my opinion. I think it's all going to be worked out in the end, but right now they threw a lot of money at it. So
Okay.
you should be aware of it, as I guess my point, because at
Okay.
some point the canal company is going to come and ask for help.
With the canal divertment, do you have a preference whether it goes to First Dam or whether it goes through Logan?
Oh, I don't have a preference. I'm all about floating the river and fishing the river. So as much water as they can leave in the river as it goes through Logan City is fine with me. I think from a political perspective, it's probably going to be diverted as at the end of the line instead of before the line, which adds more expense to it. It becomes more expensive because obviously if they do it up by First Dam, they would have gravity to then pressurize the system. And if they wait for it to go through Logan City, then they don't have that gravity. And so just is going to add some cost to the pumping and piping. But it's federal money.
As phase 2 of that project, a lot of the preliminary discussions of piping it's the lower canal right here outside of the library. That's the Hyde Park Canal. And so one of the biggest questions for North Logan is we push as hard as we can to try and get it piped the extent of North Logan. Right now it's slated to potentially stop at 14th North in this phase 2. We're in phase 1 right now. deciding what to do and how to get the water this direction. Phase 2 is how far that would go. And they've been discussions of 14th North, 18th North, 2200 North, where the two canals split twin ditches. One goes west and one continues north. And then we obviously want to see if we can get to 2500 North and beyond.
That's
which
the
would be
plan.
fantastic.
But under today's construction costs, it would be difficult to get it all the way to
Yep.
2,500.
Will there be money set aside for landowners that might be on secondary to like a grant? Do we know anything like that yet, or is it still too soon
In terms of,
in terms of getting a meter?
I don't know that. Again, this law, this
all
bill was
very new.
passed a week
Yeah.
ago. So
Okay.
they're working through it. Anyway,
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else?
I don't think
Okay.
so. Thank you.
I will come back when I have more information, at least with environmental. I'll work with Alan. If Alan can bring it up, then I don't need to be here, but I do represent you, so I don't show up at least occasionally. You guys have a good day.
Great. Thank you. All right, we will move on to considering approval for the release of the warranty bond for Wildercrest Phase 2B. Alan, can you give us some background on that? Or Jordan? Whoever
I'll
knows
leave
the
this to
most.
Jordan.
Hello. So this is a release for the warranty bond on Wildercrest Phase 2B. 2B starts, if you scroll in, it might show the line, but it starts right there about where the lot, yeah, right in there, just a little further north. Yeah, like right there. You can see the black line from that newer asphalt. So this was installed by Olo Construction or Olo Development a few years ago. They're past the 1-year warranty period, and they've requested that we release the 1-year bond. I put a note in here. There is current construction on this project throughout this subdivision. There's multiple houses that are under construction. So there are segments, especially like lot 53 on the end, that have a lot of broken sidewalk. That's caused by the construction companies doing the homes. Typically we hold the builder responsible for those improvements. So if they break them, they have to repair them before they get CBO of the home. So the development, there are some areas that are rough, but that's due to the current construction process. So we found that, the road, the water line, the sewer line, storm drain system, all the public infrastructure does meet their requirements for Olo development. And so we would suggest to release that 10% warranty bond.
Just to clarify, Olo is aware that they need to correct those things though, correct?
So they're two different groups under the
Oh.
same umbrella.
Okay.
So
sorry.
Olo development did the development,
Okay,
did all the subdivision process, but then Olo builders are building the homes. So the home builder is aware that they
Okay.
have to repair those items. Yes.
And the control that we still have is over whether we give them a certificate of occupancy, like
Correct.
that could be held up if they don't
Yeah,
fix
that's
the
our
damage.
typical
Okay,
requirement, and it happens throughout neighborhoods all over. When somebody builds a home, they break sidewalks. They have to repair it before they can move into the home.
okay. I would entertain a motion on this.
motion to approve with the stipulations outlined.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second, I think by Craig.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Thanks, Jordan. We'll move on to consideration of a modification of North Logan City Code 12D-207, post-division approval of improper subdivision to clarify requirements for post-division approval applications.
I'll give a brief rundown of this one. We worked with the Planning Commission basically to look at the requirements. This is a newly passed ordinance that we approved, allowing a method for lots that were divided a long time ago, say as part of a farmer's land or whatnot. They've been purchased by somebody who then becomes aware that it wasn't divided through a subdivision process, and they're not able to build unless they subdivide. And then say some of their neighbors aren't on board and won't sign the plat, they're kind of stuck. This code provided a way for that to be divided legally and to be legalized. I think we saw that it could be a little more clear and clarified a little bit better. And that was kind of the aim of Planning Commission in updating it. A couple things we did, if you want to scroll down, Alan. So in yellow are the changes. So this whole section F of procedure was not included in the original plan. It just followed the same procedure we have for all land use applications. But this makes it more clear. A lot of the language is taken from our subdivision ordinance. Essentially what this is outlining what needs to be submitted along with the application in order to be considered. There's a survey that's included, boundaries, basically so that enough information is there that the Planning Commission and City Council can determine that it meets the zoning of the time, whereas that wasn't as clear. And then it'll go through Planning Commission once, City Council once, and be done. So it is an abbreviated process as it was before. It's just spelled out. Also in paragraph E, just the requirements and where to find them are a lot more clear than they were previously, and with more direct links to our code as far as where you're finding those requirements. So I think this is not necessarily changing the procedure as much as making it more clear for those who wish to apply. So
I'm just curious, and maybe this doesn't really matter, but do you know off the top of your head how many improper lots and parcels that we still have?
there's a not insignificant number. We have a lot,
Okay.
and that just comes with the history of North Logan.
Right.
So a lot of those are still just parcels of, and they're farmed, or they have one existing home and the rest is a farm, and maybe so there aren't a lot of applications that we get on these on a daily basis, but and a lot of them will go through and just subdivide on the whole rather than just legitimize one lot, but there are a lot of improper lots around.
Yeah, I like that it's getting cleaned up and it's easier.
Yeah, after
Everyone
having been
involved.
through the appeals process on this, I think
Mhm.
this will be really helpful. All right. Unless there's further discussion, I'd entertain a motion on this.
I'll make a motion that we approve the cleaned up ordinance.
I
second.
All right, motion by Roger, second by Emily, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you, Spencer. And thank the Planning Commission for their work on that. That's been a really
Absolutely.
tricky one.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to consideration of a potential modification of North Logan City Code Title 12 to modify the requirement for paper copies to be submitted for subdivision design review and other applications to allow for plans to instead be submitted as a PDF.
Yeah, so this is a long written up ordinance because it has a whole bunch of sections, but essentially I went through all of our land use code, and wherever it required printed copies, with the exception of the final plat Mylar that still needs to be printed to be recorded with the county. Other than that, I changed the printed copy requirement to just PDF. And this is what we've functionally been doing operationally, is using PDFs to put in Google Drive folders and whatnot, present. It's much easier and there's less clutter. But on occasion, and it's probably happens 2 to 3 times a year, you have an applicant who's really diligent and reads all the code line by line, and they'll come in with a whole bunch of printed rolls and stacks of paper. And I want to save them the trouble of that and us the trouble of having to kind of store it. So this replaces that just with digital copy instead of paper copy.
Has anyone dug up a floppy disk?
No floppy disk. So just been for paper copies, but this will help just keep things clean for us.
Great.
I'll move that we join the 21st century and
Yes.
approve ordinance 22-07.
All right, motion by Craig,
I second.
second by Emily, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. We'll move on to consider modifying North Logan City Code titled 11-604 Winter Street Maintenance Overnight Parking Prohibited. Alan, take it away.
This one's relatively short. As you look at this, basically, this is update, or these are updates. When we looked at other cities surrounding us, we want to be very similar in our winter parking ordinance, our street parking ordinance. And what we looked at is on one side we have Logan, on the other side we have Hyde Park. We want to bring them more in line with those other two cities. So this is kind of a combination of the other two cities. What it's proposing is that we change the dates, the duration throughout the year from November 15th to November 1st. And at the end of the year from March 1st to March 31st. That brings it more in line with like what Hyde Park has as far as the duration throughout the year. And then the hours each night go from, instead of 1 a.m., it goes to midnight. And then from 5 a.m., it goes to 6 a.m. So it's a little bit lengthier each night, and then it's a little bit lengthier throughout the season. It may seem extreme, and I'm glad we're talking about this right now during the winter to lengthen those out. But this last year, our snowstorm that took out all the trees and everything else actually happened a week before Halloween. And so we had 2 other big snowstorms before November 15th. And so it'd be good to move that back so we're not putting plow drivers in danger or the individuals who parked on the street in danger. At the same time, it is very dangerous for the plow drivers to stumble upon a car in the middle of the night, in the middle of a blizzard that they have to dodge suddenly. And then at the end of the year, keep in mind on our Memorial Day program, it snowed 4 of our Memorial Day programs out of the 13. And that occurs at the end of May. So March 31st may not seem that
So
extreme at that
one
point.
thing a question I have to that point that just occurred to me, is there any way to obviously extend the hours and the dates, but can you also do a catch-all that says if there is a, snow above a certain amount that parking is prohibited on the street? Or do we just,
It's actually prohibited every night, even if it's not snowing during those months. Normally the police department has gone out and given warnings on those particular nights, just kind of to catch those.
but I'm just wondering, like in May, when we have the odd storm,
Yeah.
is there any protection there? For the snowplow drivers specifically, like a catch-all that says even outside of this time period where we have those kind of freak storms.
We could look into that. I think it'd be pretty hard to enforce. The other thing with those snowstorms that happen in May, though, it does snow. It usually doesn't stick as much during those times because the temperature on the roads have to drop below a certain point before it sticks. But I think between those dates is pretty reasonable. But if we want to look at those catch-alls before or after to give the caveats for, hey, just keep your cars off the road if it is snowing.
It may be something to at least informally do, just to remind people that if there is a big storm anticipated, to just clear the roads.
Yeah, that would be good.
But maybe you don't necessarily need, I'm not interested in making sure we hand out tickets, but just to facilitate the plowing.
A friendly reminder.
Yeah.
Where are you seeing most of the violations happen? All over, or is there
All
like
over the city.
all over the city?
Do you
So-
think we need to be better at enforcement?
This year we've been
Okay,
working
I'm
with-
seeing a lot of nods from the audience. No,
This year they've done a better job. We've talked with UB. UB's been working with his officers, but we do need to heavily enforce this because it's a safety issue. It's a safety issue for the plowers, for property, meaning the vehicles and the plow driver's property, everything involved. It's just and it might be a little inconvenience for those that are parking, but as long as they know it and if it's enforced consistently, then everyone has the same standard.
Okay.
I'm just thinking as someone that maybe has lived here 75 years and they know those dates. Now we're changing the dates. So how?
I think that would be a good thing for the newsletter. They
Mhm.
probably would read it. I don't know. That sounds more
Well,
like
I'm just-
an issue we can handle.
Yeah, it's
Have
in the
signs.
newsletter. It's in the newsletter this
So,
month. too.
okay. But just
But
as a
we can
con,
put it out.
yeah.
Just a constant communication.
Yeah, that's a easy thing to do, to just make sure it's communicated. Again, I don't think the overarching goal is more citations. I think it's truly to make it easier on the plow drivers.
The only other suggestion I have is I would maybe have somebody drop off at all the major apartment complex offices and they have newsletters and HOA letters, because they usually will tell people in their lease to park on the street at this time. So you would want to tell them that you're extending that 15 days in the time on that,
Mhm.
because most people don't get the newsletter. And I bet you the person opening doesn't read the newsletter at those apartment complexes. So I'd go to the Cove and, all those along there.
Have it highlighted, big letters for me.
And the nice thing is we're almost. to
Every
the-
apartment
we're almost
complex
that
though
point
has been really
anyway.
clear about their parking with the city. I don't know, maybe I'm just
Unless you're
coming
in
But I
from.
think most time they follow the whatever. So like in my lease for Logan, I have till the 31st, but I don't know if they followed our to the 15th. So it may not hurt to get with some of those that are in those areas,
Yeah.
especially along Four Seasons, all those the ones that go up.
Okay. Are we ready to take action on this with those kind of suggestions?
Yeah, I'd approve it. A motion to approve the modifying of the North Logan City Code.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Emily, second by Joni, all in favor?
I
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. We'll move on to updates regarding proposed RAPS applications along with the consideration of the proposed contractor for the proposed RAPS project at the Cache Recreation Complex. Ryan?
Okay,
Which one do you want me to open?
I'll just go ahead and start at the beginning. Okay, so what we normally have is we have our first bit of wraps that has normally been going through. In the past, we've been using it, we use it down at the CRC area. And then we moved up to the Elk Ridge East project. And then it went back down to Meadowview. We did most of the funds last year went towards the pickleball courts. And so this year, our wraps would be going towards the new parking lot that would be going on that would connect 3rd East to 2850 North down there.
Near the
Yeah,
pickleball court?
Near the pickleball court. So right here, you can see it. So that would just tie all this area in. The wraps would include that parking lot, the new road that would go through, a pavilion, and the new bathroom.
Is the old bathroom being torn down then?
The old bathroom is now a Parks shed.
Ooh.
Yeah, kind of excited about it. It's my only shed in that area. Don't tell Jesse I have it. So that would be what our proposed wraps is for that down there. Okay, you can go back out to the next one then.
So does that road go through or are those dead ends?
It will go through. So what those are just some raised speed bumps to try to keep people from going too fast.
Oh, okay. But it goes,
In both of
right through,
those, yeah,
okay.
we're just trying to make it so people don't go zooming through there. Especially where that field to the west will be a ball field. And so we don't want kids to be running through and have somebody going through at 45.
There's a lot of families that use that. So hopefully these speed bumps will work.
Yeah, and we made it so it has a little bit of a curve and we'll line it with a bunch of trees to hopefully make everybody slow down a little bit and think about it when they come into it. And
are there designated crosswalks
yes,
across there too? Okay.
there will be designated crosswalks in
Right there.
both
Okay,
sections.
great.
Yep.
With the orange flags.
With orange guys and everything. Yep, that's all.
And the width of it is skinnier. It's about 22 feet wide.
Yeah, that helps.
Um,
Narrows it the crosswalk.
Narrows it down with no parking. So it's really just, we left the option for the emergency vehicles to be able to go through at any time. Within reason, you'll have to slow down a little bit, Craig, going through there. But at the same token, we wanted to leave that ability open, but keep it safe throughout the day with no parking on there. We've kind of learned some lessons with Elk Ridge over the years with kind of the speed loop-de-loop at the bottom of that park that goes around. So we want to keep it a little bit safer for the patrons.
Looks good.
Any other questions on this?
This
on
looks
one?
awesome. I'm
Yeah.
really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about
Do,
it.
do you have a sense of, so this is just seeking funding?
So the wraps we're locked into I think it's an 8 or a 9 year deal with the county. So we're pretty sure that this one's going to go through. Obviously, I do have to apply for it every year, but I actually think we have the funds for this year. No, I just applied for it, so we should be getting it. So that'd be $1,000 would be going from wraps would be going to this.
So timing wise, what are we anticipating?
So we just got our bids back, and Edge won. We had 3 great companies come in and bid for us. Edge won the bid. We are working with Tech Electric right now. The pickleball courts will be lighted.
Nice.
And so they're going to be doing that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, running conduit and the lights. And then after that, Edge Construction will be coming in and starting work down there. So as soon as we get good enough weather for them to be out there.
Great.
Is Edge Construction the ones who have been doing the pickleball courts thus far?
No, the pickleball courts themselves were built by a pickleball company, since
Okay.
it has some specialty stuff where they had to tension all the concrete, and
Okay.
that company will be coming back in to finish up the pickleball court. So Edge will be doing all the stuff around it, but not anything on the actual pickleball courts.
Hey, Ryan, just quick question for the council that just timeline on the pickleball courts right now. Do we know when the something USA, the courts manufacturer are coming back in the next couple months?
No, that's dependent on the cement that we have to go around the
Gotcha.
apron. So we're kind of waiting for good enough weather, but I know that they've got that lined up to have that done. as soon
So
as
it's
it
not
goes.
the cement itself, it's weather.
Yeah.
temperature.
So if they put the cement down right now, there's chances of it cracking and fading, and so that they're trying to avoid that, and we are as well.
Are they tentatively thinking like April-ish? Or do they have any idea, or they're not wanting to say anything until the
I-
weather is better?
I think they're waiting for the weather.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. October. This is my number one asked question. So
Yeah.
just,
No,
I'd love to get an
as
answer.
soon as I know that, I will get that on to
Thank you.
everybody to know.
For everything on.
That's really exciting. Will there be a ribbon cutting with the mayor? You can play against the mayor. I know the mayor plays pickleball.
We just have to get a newbie in if we're doing an exhibition.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
Well, that's great. June 2022?
June 15th.
Okay, so we did apply for another RAPS application grant. That would be to improve this north area of Elk Ridge. Currently, as it sits, we've got a pretty small parking lot that's not really functional for a lot of stuff. And the main effort in this is to improve how the pumpkin rock runs. We host about 50 to 60,000 people in about a 5-day span, which is pretty incredible. So in this, the current pavilion, we would be taking down and putting in a new pavilion right there. And then kind of opening up the space so that the whole line and flow of the pumpkin walk could be able to flow a little bit better in that whole section with the basketball courts and the new little tree area. We're going to be putting stuff in there as well. We're hoping to be able to connect all the paths, make them all a little more functional, and then expanding out the parking lot. So taking out the big island, moving it as far over to the north as we can possibly get it, and making it so we have more stalls in there. We've seen great. I've heard nothing but good things about the project we did on the east side and improving that parking lot. This will be the same size as that parking lot that's to the east. So pretty excited about that. In this bid as well, there is a shed that would be going in to help facilitate the pumpkin walk. So they would be able to store their materials over there a little bit more on site instead of having to come over to the shops. And then, yeah, we're looking to maybe change how the basketball sits so we can get a little bit more courts, but in the same area, just switch them the other way to get 4 hoops on it instead of the 2. With the hope of maybe doing some pickleball as well.
And is the plaza, is that with trees in it?
Yes, the plaza will have trees, kind of similar to the one that's down by the Logan or the Cache County building. Next time you're down there, if you look at it, it's
Would
kind
that
of,
be one that people could come in and it would be trees and shrubs and plantings that are native here so they could come in and get an idea of what would be best to plant in our region?
Probably not. That one would probably be more just shade trees, and we're gonna try to keep it a little bit more open so we have area for the pumpkin walk. And in that plaza, there might be a historic fence. We've been looking at doing that, where it may take some of the old pumpkin walk history and build a nice wall explaining exactly what a pumpkin walk is and what it's meant to this community.
Awesome.
The pavilion where it's placed, this was something I just thought of earlier too, as I first saw this, as have we done any research as far, like how far does that need to be back away from a parking lot for maybe toddlers that might run out from there? So is there a safe distance that we know?
Yeah, we will
But
be
that's gonna
looking
be
into
set
that
back.
and making sure that that is at that distance
Okay.
when we put it in.
I
And
have
we
one of
already
those
have,
toddlers.
we will already have a sidewalk between, plus there's some electrical pedestals out front. So it will be back, it will be offset back quite a bit. And in the drawing, we gave ourselves plenty of room to be able to move that back. I mean, that's just on it for now, just as a placeholder where that pavilion would sit. But obviously, if it needed to come back where the fire pit is, the fire pit's easily moved to a different location. So.
Okay. So
But
we're
I
not
will,
approving this right now. You're just showing us
I'm,
preliminary.
We're applying for funding, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
The one thing that would be up for approval though is the bid. Which firm they use for the first project.
Yes. For
This project right here at Meadowview or the Cash Recreation Complex. Selecting Edge is the proposed contractor there.
We need to approve that. Okay.
And is that that's the only action item on this, is just the approval of the contractor? All right,
Mhm.
we're probably ready to do that. If anyone wants to make that motion.
Motion to approve Edge as the contractor.
All right, motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Roger, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I guess that motion passes. And yeah. All right, we will move on to work session items. The first one is discussion about zoning for a veterinary hospital and education center within North Logan City and the city center zones.
All right, I'll give a brief overview here, and then I'll let Cody Ferber, who's here, take over once I've talked kind of more city and zoning. We had a discussion with the Planning Commission. Similarly, this is not an application. There's no action to be taken, just to make that clear off the bat. But there are a couple sites that we've been approached about looking into veterinary hospital and education center. It's kind of a unique partnership with Utah State University, going to be running in a unique way. And I'll let Cody fill in the details more on that. He knows more about it than me. But I wanted to go over kind of the city center zoning. The sites that have been looked at, it doesn't fit as a permitted use in any of those zones, which is essentially the conflict. The discussion item is to explore if there would be any temperature or what the city council and planning commission's feelings on looking into a potential rezone or code change to allow this use in the future, and what that would be. So that's kind of the purpose of today's meeting. So looking at the sites where Alan has his cursor here, this is the primary site in question. That parcel that Alan's cursor is on right now is owned by Utah State University currently. The one to the south that's like a flag shape is owned by Rocky Mountain Power. So they have two different owners. That's in the SF6 zone, so single family 6,000 square foot lots. We have a subdivision just to the north being constructed in that zone, the Westview subdivision. So the SF6 zone doesn't allow for veterinary hospitals. Now there are a couple different things that we could do to change that. One of them would be to just allow veterinary hospitals in that zone, change the permitted and conditional use table. There isn't a tremendous amount of land left that's SF6, so it wouldn't be very wide reaching, but there are a couple other parcels that would now have that as an allowed use. Not to say that we have hundreds of veterinary hospitals knocking on our door. We have two great ones already in the city too. So there's that option. The other option is to rezone to another zone would be allowed. There are several other city center zones, and you could get a different mix of housing types or whatnot. So as is, if developed just to zoning, it would just be small single family homes, 6,000 square feet. I think the main things that we discussed in planning commission and in discussing with the applicant, kind of pros and cons list. One, this is our city center zone. Cody again will touch more on what this entails, but it could be an exciting way to bring more life and energy into that city center. Going on the case for a veterinary hospital, you bring students, you bring faculty, you bring events kind of closer to this space. Right across the street, you have a dedicated open space that's been dedicated as part of Maple Springs and North Logan Villages. That will be a town square park in the future. So that brings an activity node in. Utah State's obviously a key part of the city as a whole, with the innovation campus and space dynamics lab right in our city boundaries. So you do bring that in closer to the city center. A couple things that we're watching as part of this as well is this is kind of the edge of the city center zone. So we'd want to be very mindful to not cause an impact to existing developments or future developments there. You don't want to bring too much in and impact the people who have already built, the people who are close, maybe have some sort of a buffer. There's questions as to that. They would love to have housing as part of it as well, as part of this project for the students that are coming to study and use this. Again, veterinary hospital, but also education center. A lot of it would be used for education purposes. It'd be students there learning on the job rather than your typical. So those are kind of the balances we're weighing when considering this, just on a city end, just to give a little background. And then, like I said, I'll turn it over to Cody. He can give you a better idea of what this actually is as far as opportunity.
A little bit of printed material. Since we're old fashioned, I guess. Sorry.
I do have one. I'll just share with Roger tonight. Oh, okay.
So yeah, as Spencer graciously said, so I'm Dr. Cody Ferber, veterinarian. I actually practiced for 6 years in Preston and actually here in North Logan. Have 5 practices along from Malad to Orem, and currently run a little shelter here in Logan for the county and also for Logan City. So quite involved. But what I've handed you is an actual nonprofit that myself and then Dr. Whiting here is one of my associates. He's one of the chairs on our foundation board or on our board of directors. But 2 years ago, we started this nonprofit, New Vision, got our designation as a 501c3. Just a little bit of introduction and kind of in your front flap on the right, kind of describing these two pieces here. To put this in perspective for you, imagine that you start out and kind of take interest in a career and realize that by the time you're done with your 8 years of college education, you will have $182,000 in debt, that you're going to join a profession that has the second highest suicide rate in the country of all professional industries, compared to doctors, physicians, pharmacists, second highest suicide rate. as an industry, 59% of the veterinarians in this country wouldn't recommend their own children or friends, family, join the profession. As a profession and through rescues and humane societies, we put down 1 million pets a year in this country. We're struggling. We're struggling a little bit as an industry. Right now, I would hire 3 doctors if we had them. The state has 40 open veterinary positions in the state for veterinarians right now, and we'll fill, I don't know, Nate, maybe 10, 12 of those this year. So it's going to be tough. Going to be a little fun. So that's why we started this little new vision a couple years ago, is to try and tackle some of these problems. You'll see that on the little bit of addressing the kind of burnout cultural issues that we have on the second page. Then some of the solutions. And what we're going to propose to you tonight is a different kind of take on all of this, and a solution that I think would address a lot of these problems head on and is very unique. Our 501(c)(3) or C3 designation is one of the first in the country. Our partnerships right now are with Bridgerland Applied Technology with the University of Utah State through their vet program, and even the distributive model that they're trying to do. They did get funding and are moving ahead with that. Then we're also partnering with high schools in Cache Valley and in Box Elder County, where I live, that are going to use this facility. And for lack of a better term, we're wanting to create a campus, a veterinary campus that accomplishes 3 or 4 big things. The ground that Spencer's kind of talked about here, the university, we're in the process of trading some ground that they want in near their South Farm portion for this ground. And on this space, maybe Alan, do you have that next little plot? So we're proposing, and on the left side of your folder, you'll see just a concept drawing that we've done. Some of this is really prelim, but we're proposing to build a veterinary clinic in the right-hand side of that is also an emergency clinic. In the center portion would be a specialty clinic, and in the far left, so it's the smaller piece there. There we go, to the left is a continuation of the shelter that is being built by the county down by the jail. This will be an adoption center, so a community outreach center. So 3 pieces. On what's going to take place here is a lot of the applied learning and hands-on experience for every type of animal related student, from the high school student through the veterinary student, to receive kind of that applied learning experience that right now the new models for vet schools is a distributive model. So they take the students, rather than building a veterinary teaching hospital like I went to at CSU, the students get distributed through local vet clinics and places like this. This is a little unique because it is being built for the student and not necessarily for like my other buildings that are for profits. So a couple of the pieces that, again, we had proposed to the city or would love to continue some discussion is kind of this plot here that I think Alan showed there, but we would love to, as part of this campus, also build some housing for the students. We've kind of laid some ideas out of where these apartments and locations would be. We've also included the ground that is owned by Rocky Mountain. It's maybe a wish. The 7.6 that the university has is, they're pretty committed to help us make that happen, but we would love to acquire that other 2.5 acres that right now is proposed to be a substation by Rocky Mountain Power. And the conversations have had with them is they're very close to identifying another location, and would consider us being on the list as potentially picking up that other 2.5 acres. But for us, this makes a 10-acre piece that would allow us to build our building that is in the brown there to the forefront. And then we would love to be able to build a little bit higher density housing than maybe is currently zoned, so that we could house a vast majority of these type of students. So our goal is to have a place for them to live, a place for them to work, a place for them to learn and have an applied learning experience all in one location. Something unique in our industry for sure, unique for grad schools really around the country, and would be something that would be unique really for Cache Valley for sure, especially with those connections. We're excited to be involved. The university again got their funding, and I think they're going to try and push to have 80 students a year, so 320 students. We're hoping to house maybe 65 to 75 units on this space to house not all of those students, but a good majority of them, and give them a space to feel home and be a part of things while they're in their graduate studies. If we don't have vet students, we've talked about pre-vet students, and even the vet tech students from Bridgerland could potentially be folks that would live here on site with us. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what we're headed for. And I realize there's 2 clinics very close to us that we love both those docs. I know Dr. Durant and Dr. Israelson really well, actually worked with Dr. Israelson years ago. And our intentions is not to compete directly with those clinics. Our hours, our staff, our numbers, the processes that we're going to propose are all based on student education, mentoring and teaching, and not competition with veterinary services. We're committed to leave pricing to very competitive, no discounted kind of shelter type medicine. We're more of clinics and providing real life experience for these students. Because I definitely, that's been one of my hesitations to come into this piece of ground, is those other 2 clinics, because they're 2 of my favorite friends in the whole industry, and I don't want to hurt them in any way. So questions though, anything that I could clarify for you?
Like, obviously, couple questions. Obviously, what's the height on, I mean, you look at the concept plan, obviously,
Yeah.
you take a single family home and you take the neighbors and you look at the homes that are going in there. Do you know the height of, and obviously even the student housing, because all of a sudden we've kind of in the city planned all the big buildings down here.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I start, and also like noise control, because all of a sudden you take all these people and how much you're spending on homes. As council, I'm concerned with, okay, there's a dog park there. And I've seen some of the dog parks down by Willow Park, and they're not, I'll say it on the record, not very proud of those, I mean, they're pretty, no grass, pretty scary looking. But so all of a sudden I start saying, I'm doing a loan on one right now, $545,000, 2,000 square foot home.
Right.
And now you're telling me, so I'm wondering because you say student housing, I'm picturing up on the university, high. So I don't know if that's, obviously that's some maybe zoning change, but I don't know what you're looking for to house on that acreage,
So we've looked at a few things, and Spencer could probably help us to right here. Kind of some density things. The current building, I don't know, 2-story is what we're looking at. The upper level, if you look back, there's a idea or some concepts for classroom type things, study areas where they can be upstairs learning, and then as a case comes in, come downstairs. The apartments and things that we're hoping to build would be 2-story or 3-story, depending.
Townhome style.
Yeah, very similar. I mean, we haven't gone to the point of getting our architect to do a lot with this, since most of this is coming out of the nonprofit funding, but similar in look and feel. We want something that's appealing to the eye. I would love kind of an environment that is a pet friendly environment, and the dog park space doesn't have to be where we put it even. In fact, it's not where I asked the architect to put it. But just a space where there's paths, there's walkways, there's interaction between this and city center, even interaction with those subdivisions on the north and south. I know that one on the south is a senior kind of older community, and we'd love to get involved with them. We're going to need volunteers. We're going to need spaces that, I'd love to have that senior community feel a part of our community and come, volunteer and bring their animals over. Let us be a part of that. So we'd even be willing to put some buffer on those north and south edges of even more of that SF6 zoning if we needed. and maybe concentrated our stuff more in the middle. We've got some ideas that would probably allow us to put the housing on there that makes sense and still do that. But
Zones a little bit. I'll come over the mic just for Marie's sake, for the recording. So as far as the zoning as is, at SF6, that's 6 units per acre. It's about 10 acres if you include the Rocky Mountain stuff. So you're 50 to 60 units. Typically, you don't get to a perfect build out on what the zoning allows, so it might be a little less than that. So that's as is, SF6. So so say the temperature is, let's permit veterinary hospitals in this zone. Essentially, you'd have one lot that would have the hospital on it. And then you'd have a bunch of other lots. Density determinant wise, they could still get zoning that 50, 60 lots. They would probably be limited by their frontage, with a lot of their lot space being taken up by the veterinary hospital. So they wouldn't be able to get that many. They'd all have to be single family homes, which like Cody mentioned is not their ideal plan. There are a couple other options. One is rezoning to city center adjacent. That does allow veterinary hospitals. It doesn't require commercial space, but it allows it. And then that would allow townhomes and apartments. Obviously, that comes with just an increased density. That would be 12 units per acre. So you'd be at 120 with 10 acres. That's assuming we're all hoping that Rocky Mountain Power doesn't own that. Like, nothing against them, but if we could put houses there instead of a substation, that'd be great. The other option is city center commercial, which would permit it. I picked only city center zones just so they would fit. That's at 4 units per acre. So the residential density is way lower, and probably wouldn't provide the density that Cody is looking for, but it would allow a veterinary hospital. The other caveat with that is all the housing currently in city center commercial is required to be located above commercial space. So we would have to do a rezone and a code change if we wanted to allow there to be units on the other side. So in that case, they'd be able to have the veterinary hospital and 40 units elsewhere on the lot, because it's 4 per acre. If we made the change that you could put your residential not just on a story above your commercial. So those are kind of 3 viable options as far as code, if there's an appetite to change that and look into it further.
Spencer, while you're up there, what is the zoning? So the part on the east is the canal, correct?
Correct.
What is the zoning just to the east of that?
So the zoning just to the east varies a little bit. There are some sections of R112 in this subdivision here, which is 12,000 square foot single family lots. And then just above that, we actually have a stretch of 1 acre. So RE1 from this parcel up to the road there.
Okay. And from my understanding, there's no current developments in that area, correct?
Correct. We did have a rezone application
I do
on
remember
the
that
one on the corner.
Yes.
But that
Was silly.
didn't get a positive recommendation from the planning commission.
Okay.
So, yep.
I'll be honest with you. I really like this idea. I like the idea of having a veterinary hospital in North Logan. I think it adds some variety. The housing is something that kind of concerns me. This plan, I know it's really rough, but it just looks like a lot of housing. And you were stating you wanted to house 65 to 75 units, correct? Was that about what you're looking at?
yeah, I think
And our current zoning wouldn't allow for that right now.
correct.
Does that sound right, Spencer?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be 50 to 60.
Okay.
55 to 60, I think.
Would that be something you'd be willing to consider going down on to more match what we've got?
For sure. I mean, I don't think the SF6 zoning would quite do what we need. We really want to create this environment, and single family houses probably doesn't do that for us.
Okay.
But if it was something, and maybe should we bring up that other one, Spencer, that we draft? So we went 1 layer since last time, just with some ideas. And this is just the 7.6 acres that the university owns. But a thought was, if we had some of the area to on the north end that matches up to the SF6, kind of match that a little bit. And then again, put some of our pieces, the more high density stuff towards the middle. We could still accomplish that. We really want to get our hands on that 2.5 acres because it means we could do maybe the same thing. We could do some SF6 on the south border too. So we could still have some density, but then have some bigger lots to kind of buffer from those neighbors. But this was just, again, a proposed idea.
How many units is in that proposal?
Oh,
So it's like 48,
5,
58.
24.
63 plus
Yeah, it's
9.
about
So
in
like
that 60.
70 something.
So, and
Okay.
again, we're pretty flexible. I want it to look good too. I want it to be appealing. And the number of units is probably a little less important, other than we are going to have to bring in some investors to help us with the housing. Our nonprofit has enough to get the land and get the clinic going, but not enough to do some of the housing. And there's a little concern there about being able to finance things and make that go.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a little more appealing, something like this that creates a buffer similar to the zoning and things that are
Yeah.
existing on both sides. Both sides, as Roger was saying, that may be your highest adversaries is those that are existing.
Yeah.
And they're expecting something similar
Yeah.
in the property next to them. And so,
something like this we'd be willing to do also.
I like this.
I like your concept elevation. I have a concern about just feedback that I've received is they'd love to see nicer looking housing and
Yeah.
something that, I mean, if you're following this standard, I feel like this is a great way to start. I'd
Yeah.
love to see some buffer between existing and then this wonderful place to be by where you have people who probably would love to walk somewhere and volunteer, especially with animals. I'm really excited about it. I have a little bit of concern just to make sure that we're doing the right thing for people that live around there.
Yeah.
And then are you planning then the investors would own these units? And then would there be a property management company making sure that everything's maintained?
Yeah,
Is that
so
what you're thinking?
and we haven't worked out all of the details. We've just been looking at the number and
Mhm.
realizing that, this is a pipe dream if we don't get other folks involved. But one of our kind of pieces is the nonprofit would actually be part of that investment group and have a very big say on what happens and how things are controlled. Because again, we're both dependent on each other. So I've been really adamant that stays there. So yes, there'd be a property management group. We would honestly probably run most of it because I think most of the occupants would come through the nonprofit as an extension and say, oh, okay, you're coming to vet school here from out of state or out of the country. Well, we've got a space for you to live.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that. My one big thought, and this is just because I've lived a few other places, is what happens 15 years and you're not here maintaining it, then what happens? So I would love, as far as you're being the person that's so involved and very excited about that passion, you can feel it.
Yeah.
But my concern is now, let's make sure that 25, 50 years from now, we're all still passionate about.
Yeah, for sure. So this is Nate Whiting again. He's our chair. Give me 1/2 second. So some of the other pieces of ground that the university has that they proposed to us to lease, we've shied away from that because after 40 years, at least with the university, they actually take control of the building and everything around it. And we want this to perpetuate beyond our lifetime. And that's one of the reasons we set it up as a nonprofit. So I think there's some structural things, some communication things that as we get other players involved, we can have some policies in place that say, here's how this is going to happen through the years. But
You said you're set up as a 501c3?
Yeah.
So you have board members?
yes,
Okay.
Nate's one, I'm one. We have quite a few other doctors.
Nate'll have to live there forever.
Well, and that's actually one of the things I was going to speak to. So Cody lives over in Box Elder County, and that's where, his practices started. I live in Clarkston. I've lived in the valley for almost 18 years. I coach wrestling at Green Canyon High School. I am very invested in this community, in this county. I've known Mayor Peterson for a while. I've known Councilmember Humphreys for quite a while, coached his boy. And so our intention is to make this a perpetual positive impact for North Logan. We really want to be good partners with the city for sure. Certainly with the university and Dr. Israelson and Dr. Mario, Durant, those are our friends, and we want this to be a continuing positive impact across the community, across our industry. So, to your concern about what happens in 15 years when you're not here, I mean, we're pretty selective in who we bring in to be a part of our nonprofit, and we plan to continue that to bring in people who share our vision and our excitement and our interest. One of our other board members is Susan Curtis, who's the director of the veterinary assistant program down at Bridgerland. So it's important to us, and we recognize your concern and really want to provide assurances that, yeah, we're going to continue on with the same level of dedication to this project.
I really do. I like it. What is the maximum height? Like 2-story? What can they do there?
Is there a maximum height?
In this zone, Spencer. It depends on each zone within the city center zone.
Yeah, SF6, I think, has our typical 35 feet. City Center Commercial goes up a little higher than that. I think it's, I
55?
can't remember the exact numbers. I do remember it's higher.
Yeah.
CCA is a little higher. Those buildings, I think, are required to be 3 stories as townhomes as well now. It's a nicer product in the end. So it depends on the zone.
I just had a couple questions. What's your relationship with Utah State?
So I say partner, but no contractual things.
So you'd be ultimately acting independent of Utah
Yes.
State.
Yeah. Really, the only connection with this project is they own the ground currently. So we will have some distributive model pieces. So those students, as they go out to the communities, we hope to be one of those groups that they select to do their externships and experiences. So yeah, outside of that, we love the university, but there's things that they don't teach and they don't cover. And we want to do that here. We want to really be that partner for the veterinarian from the minute they think about it to them after they graduate, even coming back for continuing ed and those kinds of experiences here.
Okay.
One other little thought is part of our designation is we have to teach, we have to mentor. So again, that will perpetuate beyond us. We lose our designation if we don't have students and connections there. That's one of the caveats that we have.
Okay.
So,
The other question I had is just relating to kind of the nuisance aspect of it. Not that you are one,
Right.
but just as that is a term of art.
Sure.
So are we talking about small animals primarily
yes.
and any
Yeah.
large animals? So there's no,
Not
I see there's no
anticipating.
like pasture
Nope.
space or barn space.
Nope.
Okay.
We have that component, but it's all ambulatory. It probably wouldn't even take place out of this space, but it would be away. So yeah, it'd just be dogs and cats, maybe some exotic type animals, things that you could bring in a container or a
Yeah.
cage. So,
Just trying to get ahead of, concerns that neighbors may have.
yeah.
Because I think the rest of the council, I'm excited about this. I think it is really kind of fits with the vision of city center. I think it's in a really great location. I think it's an improvement on more high density housing, just on their own. So, I think it's a great idea. I think it's an exciting thing.
I agree kind of with what Lindsay's brought up there too is, are you kenneling and keeping a lot of animals that would be barking and outdoors? I know there's the dog park. So if that's
So-
strategically placed, because if a dog, I have dogs, I
Right.
wanted to be a vet. So I'm like, this is so great.
I guess like how much of it is a shelter and how much of it is a hospital?
So
that kind of is where I'm
the
wondering.
second page on that, the layout may show kind of at least the footprint there. That makes sense. So as you're looking at it, the furthest right third is the clinic, emergency clinic, that sort of thing. The center would be specialty clinic. So we're hoping to tie into some of the university staff, internists and radiologists, those sort of people. And then the left is more of this adoption center. So where you would find, we've kind of designed the kennels towards the back or more towards the center of the property, and they are fully enclosed. And to give you an example, I have two of my clinics that are in strip malls that we have a dentist. I have a guy that cuts hair right next to me. We can soundproof to the point that it doesn't even irritate them. So I'm very confident here. We could keep that to a minimum. And the dog park's more of that kind of just fun little flair. It doesn't even have to be in there, but I think it'd be a neat space to collect people from the city center to come back into an area. And I initially had it designed on that north end, a little closer to that space. So, but we can.
Yeah, and
we
I've
can-
heard interest in dog parks, and where's a better place for a dog park than adjacent to a clinic? So
I think my approval of a dog park would really depend, kind of like what Roger says. I want something that looks nice.
Yeah.
Some of them can kind of be scuzzy,
dog
honestly.
park,
I
right?
just, I don't
Yeah.
want that.
No, and we want this to be a reason that students come to Utah State to do their veterinary medicine. And we have people from all over the country that are interested to see how this relationship works between us and a university, us and a county shelter, us and private medicine. So we want it to be a showpiece. We really do, and are committed to do things right, for sure.
I think in terms of zoning, I'm not married to the single family aspect of SF6. But so, I mean, just since you're getting a temperature here, I get nervous about 120 units with the CCA, but that does seem to fit in other regards into what we're looking at. I'm trying to remember, was it CCA or CCM that requires the commercial for the ground floor? CCC. Okay. But CCA doesn't require that ground floor.
CCA may fit best.
Yeah, I think CCA does fit best. I just think we'd have to maybe talk about a maximum number of units or a maximum
sure.
density, but
Yeah.
that to me seems like it fits all components other than, we just don't want it to be, a high rise next to a hospital.
Yeah.
Well, and the 55 older community is to the south of them, and I don't really want to deal with, I think they would be very against a high rise.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Oh,
any other
wonderful.
input?
So just lastly, our vision is to cause a cultural revolution. And to be honest, there's nothing like this in the country. And we've got a couple other pieces of ground identified that would work. This is my space. This is where I'd love to be. It's going to happen in Cache Valley, and we'd love to do it in North Logan. I think that space across from us, that city center, is so appealing. As a student, if I could come somewhere and know I had a house, a job, a place to learn, and I could walk across the street and relax, have a sandwich, get a haircut. I don't know what's going to go in there, but there's nothing like this.
Yeah.
So
I think ultimately it can be mutually beneficial. We're excited that you're considering moving here. So thank you.
so we
Thank you for
appreciate your
coming.
time. Thank you.
I do, just to reiterate, I think this is a really positive thing, especially if we can button down some of the concerns that might come. I think this is one of the greatest things, that we have something so unique, and it's in North Logan. So good job.
It is definitely our passion that Nate and I'm on the end of my career, and to realize that literally we are going to change the way that veterinarians are trained, taught, address some of these issues that I mentioned at the beginning. We're tackling it straight on, and it can happen right here. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. We will move on to the fun stuff.
Woo.
The fiscal
I am
year
excited.
2023 budget proposal from the Recreation Department.
Ba-ba-ba. There we go. It's as much as I'm doing.
Well, I'm excited to present as much as Emily is to coach basketball, so
Oh my gosh, hush.
which could be a lot. All right, so with kind of go over the budget part of it, there is a lot of unknowns since we are now managing the new complex RSL, whatever the name is. You think I would know? So we kind of proposed, we looked at the revenue that the building brings in, and we kind of proposed some numbers off of that and try to get it figured out. So our revenue is going to be substantially larger because of that than normal. Right now, we're over our proposed budget from last year, and we still got several sports coming up for registration. So we're doing good on the revenue side of it. With the new building does come some more staffing. So you'll see increase in our staffing wages. This highlighted in green, this is what's we're ballpark figures. So what's going to go into the building, like maintenance and our agreement with them, which we don't know yet. We're trying to work out like a percentage deal for us and them to kind of make it profitable that way. So that's an increase there. But with all the revenue and stuff, like a lot of the revenue, I usually try to do a little lower just to be more conservative, even though we've overhit it every year. The building last year did bring in like over 250,000. So we're hoping to do more than that, but I like to keep a conservative cost to get more realistic with that. So pretty much our main goal is to be self-sustaining, which with this budget, we're close. We're about 72%. And then we're almost there. So with that going, any questions on the budget?
Self-sustaining meaning that you cover
Yeah.
72% of your costs.
Yeah, so if we can cover all of it, that's our main goal. But I know we have some, like with our sports coming up, we have seen tons of growth still ever since I've started. And Alan, if I've got a growth chart if you want to look at real quick. That I've kept track of since I started. And every year it's either doubled or just expanded growth. And this is on the budget narrative, which you guys have here. With that, we are aiming more towards trying to get residents an early head start. So you'll probably see in the next newsletter that residents can start signing up for activities April 1st, and everyone else is going to be like April 18th for the next go around. So we're going to implement a 2 weeks notice for that, or 2 or more. So they have the first dibs on it. So we can take care of our residents there. And I do have some statistics with how much is resident, non-resident also in the narrative as well.
What typically how long is the sign up period total?
Usually it's like 6 weeks is really a good time. Some are open for a couple months, but we try to do a 6-week window, if not more.
Okay.
For them to sign up.
Real quick question, Jesse, on the Roger Rec Center down there. that we
Oh, I
took
like
over.
that.
I know that throughout, we've always like on the fire station, on the police station, they always talk about when a building's new. Do you know how it works? Well, because I know that after a while you have to replace turf. I know it's a metal roof, so maybe you don't have as much concern there, but have we built into the budget? So does the nonprofit or however does that set up, do they do it? But now all of a sudden, do we have to replace turf in 10 years? So from some of that revenue, should we be budgeting 25,000 to be put in a pot so that in 7 years, and I don't know what the turf life is. How is that now that we're taking over that building? How does that work into the budget?
Yeah, so we talked about this the other day actually with the foundation. When we figured out our percentage was split, that we're going to split, they're also going to be saving money on their end for replacements of the turf. It's about a 15 to 20 year life.
Okay.
Just start putting money away for it, upgrades, electric nets, things like that. So a lot of it might just be them putting all the money in for repairs and stuff like that.
I just didn't know because obviously you come to the city. I didn't know if we had all of a sudden I need 150,000 for
it's 400,000 to
Yeah.
replace the turf.
Really?
I mean, so that's where obviously if we were responsible, I would think that we want to
start that now, even though we're so many years in.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt too to get something like that going. Just we wouldn't put as much in for replacing the turf as they would, but I mean, any little bit helps.
It's probably wise to
it probably needs to
do.
be spelled out so
Yeah.
that we're,
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like it. So yeah, we're still continuing to be amazing.
I hear you are amazing.
Yeah.
If you have not participated in a youth sport as
Well,
a
I
parent,
think
I would
the
highly recommend at
stats-
least coming. They're very good.
The stats really do speak for themselves, you know, that you're serving the entire valley, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I worked with some people on an Excel sheet to automatically populate resident, non-resident, and how many participants we have this last fiscal year, or from July to December, and it was like we're up to like 5,600 people over the whole year. That's ran through our programs. You might be the same person for the same sport, but
And we
a lot of
talked about
people.
this a little bit,
Mhm.
but which sports, or if, are you charging a different amount for non-residents versus residents?
right now we're currently not, but we are looking at the idea of maybe just a couple dollars more. I have talked with a few non-residents and like just try to get a feel for like what's enough that wouldn't drive them away. I was like a couple dollars. They're like, oh yeah, no problem. So I might just toy with the idea of.
I think that
I
makes
gotta figure out
sense,
how to
just so
do it.
that, you know, that non-resident, or so that residents aren't covering, you know, subsidizing. It's not really a realm that you want to get into. And I know that, you know, when my kids have played outside of North Logan, that's just something I expect, just anecdotally.
Yeah, and it does help like our overall numbers coming in with non-residents, but we definitely want to make sure we take care of our
Would we
citizens
include
first.
Hyde Park as a non-resident? I know that they don't, do they have a rec department?
No, we've
Okay.
kind of, once the high school came in, I've met with the mayor several times and we kind of took over their rec side of it. So we kind of consider them
It's kind of more north.
yeah,
Park
it'd just
little
be a
bit?
sports resident. Our parks and pavilions, they would still have to charge a non-resident fee for them for those, but.
Okay.
But
just
yeah,
for
that makes
sports.
sense to
Yeah.
keep us both lumped together, but I'm thinking more, you know,
The
Yeah,
Logan
like-
people. who
and
are doing it.
particularly
Logan,
we've
yeah.
talked about outside of Green Canyon boundaries, you know, maybe doing tiers in that way, that you do Hyde Park, North Logan, Green Canyon boundaries, and then out, you know, kind of do tiered rates.
Yeah, we definitely. I gotta figure out how,
Okay.
but you
agree.
know, it's
I
also
think
my
it's-
last name. How do we do
Yeah.
it?
If you
We've
can't
paid-
do it, who can?
Yeah, we've paid more, and if we haven't lived in the city and we're not paying taxes there, and I'm happy to do that if it's a great program and you have.
I think you're at that point
You're at that.
Yeah.
where, you know, I think for a while you're just trying to get people in, and
Yeah,
you
that's true.
you don't want to put any impediments. And I think now you almost have to just kind of economics, right? You're trying to balance how many people you can accommodate and then cost.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think we're finally at that point. I agree.
okay.
So
I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah,
You're gonna do
great work,
things.
Jesse.
thank you very much. I couldn't have done it without Ryan and his amazing parks.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Collaboration. All right, then we'll move on to,
Cemetery.
we're on cemetery. Is that Ryan as well? All right.
Okay, so the cemetery, our budget's not really changing that much from last year. The one thing we are looking at doing, we would really like to get that water and sewer number to come down. So I'm working with a couple of pump companies to see if we can't build a pump down at the canal, be able to divert the water up and just pump and get off. So right now it is culinary water. We're trying to get that to be all secondary water. With the implementation of weather track up there and some water saving efforts, we saved about 1 million gallons of water last year up
Wow.
at the cemetery. So that may sound like a lot, but we used a lot of water as well. So it would be nice to get on the secondary. Everything else is pretty much the same in that one. The one thing, do I point that out now about the shed? Okay, the one
Give it
thing
to
I
us.
am looking at, so scroll down a little bit, Alan. Keep going. So we are looking, we have no shed and no bathrooms up there at the cemetery. So we are looking at areas and ways to put in a shed. in conjunction with the shed, we may need a booster pump to get the water from the canal to have enough pressure to get all the way to the top to be able to supply all the water. And so that would maybe be where we put that booster pump is in with that shed. But we would like an area to be able to store some dirt and some machines instead of having to road those up every time we have a burial. We average about 25 to 35 burials a year. So pretty much one every other week.
How many lots are still up, or plots are still up there available? Do you know?
Oh, there's a lot. Since phase 2, we probably have 2,000.
Phase 2 of 4, so.
Yeah.
Is there potential to increase the price of a plot?
And have you done?
Potentially,
Yeah.
So
Have you done water-wise landscaping and things that could maybe reduce the need for a lot of water?
The hard part is most of your cemetery, the main lots are grass.
Yeah. What kind of grass are you using?
We're using bluegrass, blue and ryegrass. It's a little softer. People can get on it. It's
some cemeteries switch to a fescue blend. The problem with the fescue blend is it doesn't heal. So it uses a lot less water, but it won't heal itself. And every time you do a burial, you have to replace the grass. So there's a in
plus
kind of
and
a plus and
minuses.
minus to doing it that way. What Ryan was describing is up here, he's kind of put together a master plan. I'm sorry, Ryan, if I'm jumping
Oh, you're
ahead.
good.
These north areas don't have burial plots in them. This will be for a veterans memorial, and Spencer's been doing some of the design work on that. And then looking at a shed more down here in this area. So then the water would be boosted from the canal up to the shed area, which would be used for clean fill and the operations of the cemetery, and then boosted again up to the cemetery.
And I think
So-
maybe it's helpful to describe what you mean by you have to road it up. You guys are driving
Yeah,
up
so
clean dirt, right?
from the parks, yeah, we know, well, you can kind of see our piles there in the corner. I mean, that's some of the stuff we'd like to clean up. I mean, it's a little bit of an eyesore. It used to work until we got phase 2 in, and now that we're selling plots in that area, it just kind of feels a little, I don't really like to put the dirt right there. But that's our best storage spot for the dirt. So it would, yeah, we would hope to have them a mini X that could be stationed up there at the shed and a tractor also put up there at the shed.
And one of the things that I've learned in being on the cemetery committee, and there's some things that they do to really try to go the extra mile to make this time for these families a little more,
Special.
yeah,
Mhm.
able to handle it. One of them is they haul the dirt away. They don't dig it, pile it next to the hole. They haul it away during the services and then need to bring it back. And so when it's cold weather, that dirt will tend to freeze and they have different problems. They got to truck it back and forth. So having a building where they can keep that dry and thawed and some things like that is very helpful. And then the need for restrooms here with the amount of people that we have using that. And I put flags on all the veterans headstones twice a year. And I see a lot of people up there all the time. When I'm up there, there's other people there using that and visiting. And so the need for restrooms, I think, is pretty high.
Yeah, restrooms, and we were looking at and doing a nice water spigot as well, because there's a lot of people that get up there and don't really have access to water. So that'd be nice to have both of those things right there.
Could you move the storage shed down to the south end of the
We
cemetery?
we
so
looked
it's
at
not-
about halfway between the canal and the cemetery.
I'm just thinking,
little
yeah,
shed.
because as I walk my dog up and down there, and so if there's a shed there and somebody's coming out, when you go down that street from the top, you can pick up speed without even having your foot on the gas. And so if that's left to where you're,
So as my understanding is, we're hoping that that will not continue to be the main access to the cemetery. At a certain point, we are hoping to be able to connect this road down into something, and then the actual main entrance to the cemetery will be over here.
Yeah, the south
but
end.
that could be how many years?
I mean, a couple of years ago, we thought we were gonna have a subdivision there. So, I mean,
Yeah, 2300 north will be the main entrance to the cemetery. The north end will turn back into a cemetery access road. The shed we thought of putting up here because it'll be the most out of
kind
the
of further to the back. You'll be
yeah,
at the
further back.
yeah.
It'll be out of the way because 2000 East will be a main road as well.
Could you
Yeah.
do it in the middle or just down a little? I'm just saying, no matter what, that will always be a road. And so just keeping the visibility would be important.
This will all
So-
be a major, this will all be park in the future. And the cemetery will expand into the park as needed to the west. So you'll see these phases. This is phase 1, phase 2, and this will be phase 3. Then you'll start with phase 4, 5, 6, and it'll continue that pattern all the way down through.
Are you doing anything as far as,
We are going to try to bring it off, so it won't be directly on the road, and we would be treeing it up. So we don't want to be seen as much as possible when we go up for a burial. So the more that we can be hidden and make it so that the family doesn't feel like they have to rush because we're up there, the better. So we are looking at ways to kind of make a tree barrier for the whole perimeter of our building and make it so it's not as visible. It won't be directly right on the road. It'll be off a little ways.
are you doing any of those walls for urns and? what is
A
that,
mausoleum.
Is that
We
what-
haven't
thank
talked
you.
about that yet, just because of the space that we do have in the cemetery. We have several cremated remain burials and they allow 2 per burial plot. And so it's very popular right now to bury cremated remains.
Is that available?
Plots?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plots available.
For those,
The first phase of the cemetery has 1,500 plots. They're about sold out. And then the second phase of the cemetery has about 1,900. And I bet about 10% of those are sold.
Yeah.
They just buy a normal plot and then they put the ashes within those.
He's in 2 per lot.
okay. This is good. I have, I
Two are
mean,
allowed
if
per
somebody
lot.
were asking me now, I know. What are those lots selling for?
I think our
Is that
burial.
a question that I can
plot-
ask?
Yeah, I think they sell, they're relatively inexpensive compared to other cemeteries. I think they're around 350 per burial plot for a resident.
Okay, thank you.
And I was surprised to learn on the cemetery committee that we have people who attend funerals and then buy plots, which I think is crazy and amazing. It speaks really highly of how you guys handle cemetery burials.
Yeah, we try to treat every burial like it was, very important to us as well.
I'm not just saying this, but because of Ryan and the work that he's done, this is the standard for public cemeteries. When other cemeteries are going in or when we have questions, they call us. So we'll get tons of calls about what are our standards? How do we do things? How do we operate? And that it's really because of the work Ryan's done.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Okay.
All right.
So that's the cemetery. Any questions about it? All right.
You're just proposing for the future cemetery shed and the restroom. I guess is that something you want the money then for 2023 to do it in 2023? Or is this like a pipe dream?
So in the cemetery budget, I do believe that I have the funds.
Oh.
Don't tell Alan that. but I do believe I have the
So
funds.
Ryan
Okay,
wants it yesterday. In reality, budgetarily wise, it'll probably be about a year, maybe 2 years
Yeah.
before we start looking. into it.
You can have a Johnny hut, one of those green things for.
So if I can help you sell some of those plots, you might have a little more funds to put towards a back.
What people don't realize is that the land agreement for the person who donated this land, you can't raise the price. So if you buy some at 350, and I go to try to sell them in 20 years, the rule is you have to sell it back at the same price you paid for it.
Really?
And
To
like
the
Logan.
city.
To the city.
So you can't use it as an investment. Some other cemeteries, when we established this, we said, if you could start over today, what would you do? And that was one of the things they said, just if people buy plots, you're buying the burial rights, you're not buying real estate. And so if they don't want the plots, they have to sell them back to the city at the price that they paid for.
And is that
buying-
just to
sorry.
prevent people from gouging?
Yeah, originally we had the first day, people came in and bought 20 or 30 plots, thinking that they could sell them or that their whole family would be buried there. And after 10 years, they've used 2 or 1.
Yeah.
And now they're talking about, well, we want to sell 10 of them or 15 of them away. And so it prevents some of those errors that we made the first 1 or 2 weeks that we had the cemetery.
Okay.
I like that.
All right. I think we are ready to move on to parks.
Okay, so I guess one of the major changes that you'll see in the top is the 300,000 for apps. That is the 300,000 up top matches our 300,000 down below. If I do not get approved for the wraps for the north part of Elk Ridge, then it'd just go back to the $150,000. Everything else up there pretty much stays the same. Then in parks, we are going to be taking over more of the pumpkin walks stuff. It was under Jesse, and we're just trying to free him up a little bit with that. We're there all the time anyway. So our park wages are going up a little bit, just with the hiring processes.
How are you doing staff wise? Like, do you have open positions?
Yeah, we've
And
got
how
a
many?
lot of open
A lot
positions,
of them.
full-time and about 6 or 7 part-time. So
Out of how many?
there's going to be 12 of us total. So, but it's normal at this time of year to be down that low on part-timers. We'll hopefully fill those up by then. We don't want too many people in the shop right now. We just have a kind of a skeleton crew to help with snow plowing and machine maintenance. And then we'll ramp back up here in the spring as soon as the snow melts.
Okay.
I have a funny question, maybe. Is there a leash law in all the parks?
Yes, you're
Okay.
supposed to have dogs on leashes and all pets on leashes.
Okay.
Yeah, dogs, that's a good question. A few years ago, they asked about all the cities and whether they were anti-dog or not dog friendly. I know that a few of the cities don't allow dogs in any of their parks, then they have designated dog parks. North Logan's a little bit different. We have just leash laws. We allow them in all the parks, but they have to be on a leash. What it
Yeah.
should be.
We have a few features of the parks that make dogs and not being on leashes kind of tough with the splash pads that are open. Bear River Health kind of frowns down on any type of animal that can come in and use the restroom on a facility that a kid's going to be playing on the splash pad.
Mhm.
And so if we allow dogs to not be on leashes in the parks, I would have to build a fence around every single splash pad
No, that makes sense.
to keep
Is
the
there an
dogs
area
out.
where you could put a dog park? So if they want to bring their dogs in there, they could.
I mean, I think that the dog leash rule is pretty good. We don't really have like an area where they can just let them run.
Dog parks are really tough. Salt Lake City, when they first put them in, the first one they put in, they spent $1 million to put in the dog park. And then after they put it in, the health department had to come in, close down the dog park, and they spent $300,000 to revamp it and just put
Oh.
in wood chips across the whole thing. So they're really tough to maintain and keep
Yeah.
looking nice.
So we go down to the cemetery and parks association every year. And that was one of the big topics a couple of years was dog parks. And the struggle with dog parks is you do a lot of bark and stuff like that. But then the bark, when the dog uses it as a restroom, it then breeds a lot of disease that then gets passed on to other dogs. So there's a lot of struggles with dog parks. And there are a lot of maintenance for me.
I happen to be at a home that sits very close to the park, and so we can sit out, and on the east side is where I see a lot of people that might take a Frisbee and let their dogs run out there. And so, I mean, I love to see it, but I just would like to clarify that.
Yeah, normally I will stop and just tell them that they do need to be on leashes. We have signage all over the parks, but
I think it's more in the summer that people will keep their dog on a leash, but in the wintertime, when there's very few people there, that's where you see them
yeah,
kind of free
and I'm
running.
not out as much.
And I don't, I don't want to go over and be that, so.
Yeah. And Nolan and Jason have been pretty good about going out and talking to the people about keeping their dogs on leashes, just more of the information to them.
Well,
So
maybe that's where we're going into spring and some people are new here or they just don't know. That might be a good thing in the newsletter. Just another reminder of that.
Okay. Anything else?
no, I think mine's pretty good. It didn't change all that much from last year to this year. So any questions about it?
I don't think so.
Well, good job.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we will We will move on to discussion regarding a proposed water source protection ordinance.
Hello again. So what we need to what we need to put back into our code, which we haven't had before, is a source protection program. So currently all of our water sites where we collect water, our wells and our springs up the canyon, they're protected by a source protection plan. So basically what that plan, if you scroll down and go towards the bottom, it kind of outlines it. The top's more definitions. But basically it identifies what you can, we're right there, go up a little bit. Yeah, what is prohibited and what is allowed within a radius of the well zone. So the aquifer is protected. We have protection plans at the state level that we have to submit every 5 years. We have to update them. And so this ordinance would just go in there because we don't have one currently. It puts us back into compliance with state code, and it helps people. That one way it does help developers is it gives them an idea of if they're trying to develop in an area where we have wells, that they can do certain things within those parameters, within the vicinities up to 250 feet, 300 feet, stuff like that. The only well we're really concerned about, we have a few, as you guys know, in the mouth of the canyon. One of our wells is currently inside of Logan City's limits, and it's in a commercial area. And so that's one of the wells we monitor closely with the state and with the engineers to make sure that that one is protected and our sources are protected. So yeah, there's a lot of verbiage in here.
Is that the jets?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of verbiage in here that goes on about different things, but most of this is really just the 1,000-foot view. To get an idea of what exactly is allowed, we have to look at the actual source protection for each individual well. So,
And is this language, what's it pulled from? Because my understanding is we were operating under the state law
Yeah.
and now we're making city ordinances to reflect that. Is it just
Mhm.
borrowing language from the state law?
yeah, this one's actually copy and pasted from the
Okay. That's actually probably a good thing.
That's what
There's no reason to,
You don't
to write
reinvent
our
the wheel,
own.
and it's very vague because it just references back to our current source protection plan. So
Okay.
Plagiarism's encouraged at the city level.
What?
Plagiarism's encouraged. at the
It,
city
I
level.
think it's smart.
I do. I'm like, it's easy to read. I get it. I don't
Is our
need to
next step
special
then to do
degree.
like a public hearing on it? Or do you?
I don't think it would require a public hearing,
Okay.
It would- depending on what title it goes in. So right now, this one's stolen from Newly's in Title 10. It would fit within our Title 10. Scott would be the expert on this, but we'll get with that. That's a very good question, because certain ordinances, when we pass them and when we propose them, land use ordinances from Title 12 have to have a public hearing.
Okay.
Ordinances in other different titles usually don't need a public hearing. Sometimes we do them to err on the side of caution, let the public have a chance to participate in this, especially if they're far reaching. This one's kind of redundant with things that we already have to do. Like Jordan said, we already have to submit source protection plans every 4 to 5 years and update them accordingly with new and more strict standards every time.
So is there an action to be taken tonight?
No,
No.
it's just in the discussion items because it's not in the format ready to be
Oh, okay.
adopted.
Yeah.
But it's to be brought before you to kind of let Jordan go over it and then see what feedback you have or questions, concerns, things that we need to alter within this before. we
Yeah,
bring it
I have
before.
no desire to rewrite law.
Anyway,
I've
any
done
other
it.
questions about it? I mean,
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, updates on the Civic Center.
If you want to just go over just any of the latest design, I just put that in. There's a place saver to let everyone know just where we are roughly in the car.
Yeah, so we've been working with the CMGC on the city offices construction. We've met with the interior designer for those city offices and made a few selections. That's kind of the fun part of it. We have been meeting with the library board, the library, and the Friends of the Library in an executive committee to go over really high level designs for the library and the community center itself. We're continuing to get feedback on those. And then we'll kind of expand the sources of that feedback. We're also trying to kind of start talking about fundraising. The Friends have done a really great job of getting some fundraising ideas going. They're working with the library right now. They're working with Jesse, is my understanding. But we're really going to be hitting this from several different angles from a fundraising perspective, both finding community donors. So if you know anyone with deep pockets, send them our way. But also just one of the aspects that we're trying to focus on with that is just getting the community involved, even with micro donations, just to demonstrate or to elicit public support on this. But I mean, there are a few things that we're working with the engineers on, piping the canal a little bit early, so the parking lot ultimately will be over the existing canal. And so we're working on that. What else, Alan?
We just one point of clarification from the earlier in this meeting when Brett Randall got up and talked about the Crockett Avenue and gave that report regarding everything. When we're talking about piping the canal, we're talking about a non-pressurized pipe. So we're putting the canal in a pipe so that we can build around it, build a parking lot over it. The pressurized, the pipe that Brett was talking about is a pressurized irrigation pipe. So that would actually be a pressurized pipe that would bring water to constituents, users of the water. Just a point of clarity there. So when it comes in afterwards, it could either be in the pipe or on the side of the pipe, or probably on the side of the pipe. Adjacent to it would be the pressurized pipe in the future. Yeah, those are the main elements right now. We are applying for the CIB loan for the community center. That's the library model, the children's library, and the civic center, community center. Sorry, there's too many C's here. For the community center room. That would be the CIB loan that we have to apply for, and probably next month we have to go and present that.
Yep, groundbreaking, we're hoping, even if it's just symbolic in Mayish, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, then we'll move on to, unless you guys have any questions on that.
No, just really excited.
Yeah. All right, reports from city officers, boards, and committees. Jordan, you want to go first? Okay. Okay. Nothing.
Got you.
Newsletter.
We're on the same way. My
Okay.
birthday. That's right.
Sorry, I can give you an update on events. It's not in there, and but upcoming events coming up. You have the Easter egg hunt. What day is that, Jesse? April 9th is the Easter egg hunt. April 9th at 11 a.m. sharp. There's one for persons with disabilities at 10 a.m. So there's one for persons with disabilities at 10 a.m. at Elk Ridge, 11 a.m. to 11:01.
Hey, we've made it to 11:02 in the 0 to 2 range. So.
Yeah, it's very short, and you have to be there promptly. So that's a major event coming up. And then, as the mayor brought up, a couple other things, groundbreaking and fundraising. We'll talk about the dates, and we'll probably put together some proposed dates.
And then the color run.
Health and
Oh.
Wellness Fair.
And that's mid-March? Okay.
Some of the recs putting together at the
What, March, what is
Roger-
that, 24?
Roger Anderson Memorial Facility.
Memorial. Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Plots are really
Roger.
cheap, Roger. You might want to
I
get in
own 10
now.
of them.
Oh.
Yeah, yikes.
Do you need sponsors for those?
I might.
I don't know. Are you looking for sponsors, Jesse?
I'll do it under the table.
The
For the
health
Health
fair?
and Wellness Fair or vendors? booths, anything?
Do you want sponsors to launch eggs? Like, what's that big thing you use?
Oh, for the Easter egg
Yeah.
hunt? We've given away some prizes in the past with golden eggs. So if people want to come in and donate, we
Okay.
can have golden eggs.
We're really trying to funnel the fundraising all to the library, just so everyone knows.
Oh.
Like because we're really going to be pushing for that. So I'm trying to not ask multiple times, especially as we approach the summertime. But color run, did someone mention that? That's mid-April as well. that would be good to encourage participation with, because that will be a fundraiser for the community center library.
So sponsors, that money couldn't go towards other use like the city center?
What the,
If you had sponsors helping with Easter egg or,
you could do that, but you could do that. I'm just a general council, like, just be sensitive to the fact that we're asking people for donations, so. Okay, anything else, Alan?
No, sorry, Utah League of Cities and Towns.
Oh, right.
Scott, hopefully, you paid attention to the emails coming up, but he's probably done a bunch of the reservation. You have to register before March 30th if you haven't done that yet. That saves a considerable amount of money on the reservation fee.
Okay.
Right? That's okay.
And do we know who's going to that on the council?
I need to talk to Scott.
Not me.
Craig, you said you don't know? Oh, okay. You are, Johnny?
Roger.
Okay.
I may not be there. My
I
wife's
thought Buzzy was
going to
planning on
Africa for
going.
2.5 weeks, so I might have to be here.
I think Buzzy's planning on going, isn't he?
I think
Yeah,
it's Buzzy and
And the
Alan.
mayor.
I'm planning on it.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it. Sorry.
Okay.
I keep them brief for Roger.
Any discussion from the council, anything to bring up? Okay, then I entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, that was.
Pause.
second.
That's the planning.
That
Oh,
will be
no.
planning commission tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's planning.
No,
But we're so glad you're here. Thank you.
Sorry that you just had to sit through all of that.
Now you know what's going on. Mm.
We can talk to you after to make sure you're up to speed.
thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn by Craig,
Motion seconded.
second by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Do I have to say that? Or is it implied?